where Yaakov Don taught and was many of these boys' teachers, and they came out here today to help and build the shvil and help for this lasting memory. I also want to thank a huge thank you to Nadia Matar and Yudit Katzover, the founders of Oz V'Gaon, and to Davidi Perel of Moetzet Gush Etzion for help and support in this event. Really invaluable help. Thank you. Invaluable help. And of course, thank you all so much for coming out today to Oz V'Gaon to show your love to the Schwartz family and to come together here in Gush Etzion to remember their special son Ezra. Hashem Yikom Damo. My name is Rocky Brody, and I'm from Alon Shvut. My husband Jeremy and I have been good friends with Ari and Ruth for over 20 years now. 5 weeks ago, when I sat in my car about to turn into the bumper-to-bumper traffic from Alon Shvut, my sons and I heard shots ring out into the air a few cars ahead of us and knew that something very bad was happening. At that exact moment, there was no way for me to know that I had just lost both a neighbor and a teacher of my children, as well as my close friend's son. Only looking back a few days later, after speaking with Ruth many, many times, and knowing that she wanted to come out here to Oz V'Gaon and to Gush Etzion, was I able to see that maybe that's why I was there at that moment, and maybe that's why I live where I do, here in Alon Shvut. Maybe Hashem put me here for this exact purpose, to try to bring more nechama to my good friends. In fact, I believe that we were all put here for this purpose today, to try and bring forth that nechama as well. Ari, Ruth, Mali, Hillel, Ilan, and Avi. Gush Etzion is like one big family, and from our family to yours, our arms are always open wide to embrace you and to hold you up whenever you need, because we are always here for you. And this time I'd like to call up Ari Schwartz to say a few words.
Thank you, Rocky. Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you to the mayor and to all of you for being here today. It's really so nice of all of you to come and be here with us and show us your tremendous support. Within a week after Ezra died, we began talking about a trip to Israel. As we were deciding about whether to come or not, Ruth and I began to think about how nice it would be to come to Israel, to do what Ezra was doing, and to go where Ezra was going, and to learn and to hang out in the places where Ezra was learning and where Ezra was hanging out. One of the first places we thought of was Oz V'Gaon. I pictured myself just being in this park with a rake and a shovel, just being like Ezra. I actually hadn't envisioned this. I just figured we would come here, our family, and just do what he was doing. Obviously, this is more meaningful. This was a special place for Ezra. He had told us that he enjoyed working here. And the afternoon of the attack, he had come back from Yerushalayim. He'd come back to his yeshiva in Beit Shemesh. He was very tired. He initially did not want to go back in the car to go back here to Oz V'Gaon, but he forced himself. His friends told us the story. Michael Benzakane, his friend at Ashreinu, described Ezra running after his roommates down the hall, eventually telling him that he had changed his mind. Michael thought he changed his mind because he did not want to leave all the work for his friends. And when he told me that story, it reminded me of the way Ezra was at home with when we would rake leaves. We live in an area where we have forest all around, and we would get a tremendous amount of leaves in the fall. And it would take us just days and days of work and effort to clean it all up. And Ezra, I don't want to sort of pretend that he was, jumping out there and helping, but what would happen is I would try to bribe the kids to come out and help, and I would pay them a lot of money. And Ezra really didn't. He's like, I don't really need the money, but I would say, Ezra, come on, we need help. And then he just had this okay, I got to do my part. And he would go out and he would do like his section, and he would do his part, and he would I just sort of saw that same, when I heard that story, it just reminded me of the way his personality was of like, oh, I'm too tired, you know what, but I have to go, and I got to do my part, and, it just made me picture who he was. 2 weeks before he died, he had told Ruth that he really wanted to get something out of this year in Israel. He'd also been speaking with his friends at Ashrenu, and collectively they were trying hard and pushing each other to get the most out of their yeshiva and out of their year in Israel. Hearing this made us so proud of him. I can assure you that this attitude was really self-motivated in terms of just doing everything that he could this year. We didn't really spend a lot of time sitting down with him, telling him to make the most of this year. He led his own path. He wanted to make his life here in Israel better, and he wanted this to be meaningful. He was really pushing himself. In fact, Ezra's entire plan for this year was really his own plan. We really encouraged him to choose whatever he wanted to do. We did not want to push him in any particular direction in terms of where to go, whether it be Israel or anywhere else in the world, or even if he didn't want to take a year off, whether he went to yeshiva or a different type of program. But he knew we wanted him to do whatever he wanted to do. During high school, we watched how he could be motivated and successful in certain areas, and he could be the opposite in other areas. And for him to be successful and happy, he really needed to be doing something that he liked and that he wanted to do. It was his choice to come here. It was his choice to come to yeshiva. And it was his choice to go to Ashrenu, to the place where he could combine learning and Torah and community service along with Tiyulim and sports. After speaking with so many people in the last month, it was very clear that Ezra had made the right choice for himself. We were so proud to hear about how happy he was involving himself in all of his goals for this year. He was where he wanted to be, and he was doing what he had planned. Nothing makes me happier than knowing that Ezra was at a very happy point in his life when his life ended. Being here, involving ourselves in his plan and his goals, is a way of celebrating his life. It is a way of showing our pride in Ezra and our pride in the path that he chose. Last night, as I was talking to a few of my cousins who are Israeli, they were explaining how they felt and how Israelis were feeling about us and about how we would handle this tragedy. One of the things that they made clear to me was that a lot of people in Israel felt a sense of how are Americans going to sort of deal with something that we in Israel deal with all the time, and we have each other and we have all of Israel and the whole nation to help us and to support us. And it was, my cousins were worried. How were they going to go back? And almost a sense of like feeling like we were alone. But I can assure you that we have not for 1 second felt alone. Not only do we feel the entire nation of Israel behind us and supporting us, but the entire our town, our state, our country behind us, and all of the Jews across the United States have just been unbelievable. And then of course our friends have just been incredible. But coming here, right from the moment we stepped off the plane and people were singing for us in the airport, and then when we arrived in Ra'anana and my brother and my sister-in-law's friends are all there singing for us there, and in shul, and and then planting vines this morning and planting trees this morning. And then now coming here and seeing all of you here, we just feel such a tremendous amount of support that I just can't even describe how good we feel that you're all here with us. And it doesn't change how we feel. It doesn't. We just miss him so badly, but this does make it better. And you should all know that. And I thank you very much for that. Thank you.
Ruth, you come speak.
On June 12th, 2014, Ezra came into my kitchen and said to me, "Mom, did you hear?" Because of the worry in his voice, I knew exactly what he was referring to. He had heard that 3 teenagers in Israel, Gilad Sha'ar, Eyal Yifrach, and Naftali Frankel, were kidnapped. Ezra was the type of kid that internalized events like this. He truly worried. Each day he would wonder out loud about them. Later in June, Ezra came to Israel for a summer program with his camp. Each time I spoke to him, he mentioned what was going on in Israel with the search for the boys. He wondered if they could possibly still be alive. On June 30th, he called me and said, "They were found. It's so sad and really hard to think about." Ezra was in Israel that summer for another 5 or 6 weeks. He endured the summer of Operation Protective Edge, along with many of you that live here. That experience didn't deter him from wanting to spend the year here in Israel between high school and college. As many of you have heard, Ezra was happy, mischievous, funny, friendly, and silly. He loved talking to people and learning new things. Ezra enjoyed nature and loved sports. His innate being was to make people happy and to protect and help people. He was excited to come to Israel to a yeshiva program with many different chesed project choices. He was interested in learning to teach cancer awareness and prevention in schools. He loved coaching basketball to underprivileged kids, and of course, the first chesed project he told me about was this project at Oz V'Gaon. The park, he told me, that was created in memory of Gilad, Naftali, and Eyal. He was committed to helping with the yard work and helping to make the park more beautiful and functional. He did tell me that it was hard, physical work. I believe Ezra was coming to Oz V'Gaon most weeks on Thursdays since before Sukkot. On Thursday, November 19th, he was killed on his way here. Since then, I've been trying to make sense of this tragedy. I've decided there is no way to make sense of it. It doesn't help me to think about a larger meaning for Ezra's killing. It doesn't help me to think what if or why him. Ezra was targeted because he was Jewish. He was targeted by an evil person, a terrorist, same as Gilad, Naftali, and Eyal. This terrible tragedy if this terrible tragedy had to happen, I am comforted by the fact that he now has a further connection to Gilad, Naftali, and Eyal. We are so appreciative of the outpouring of love and support that we have received both here in Israel and in the States. We feel so blessed that Ezra's life and death has so much meaning to so many people. Thank you, Nadia and Yehudit, for supporting my sister the night Ezra was killed, as well as helping to make this ceremony possible. Thank you, Rocky and Jeremy Brody, our very good friends who live here in Alon Shvut. The minute Rocky heard that we wanted to come to Oz V'Gaon, she organized this entire ceremony. I'm so proud of my children and my husband and our family and our friends, as well as Ezra's friends, for joining us today and continuing to help us celebrate Ezra's life. We are indebted to the first responders and the Army soldiers for doing their absolute best to help and honor our son. We were so far away and feeling so helpless and confused, but I can't even describe the comfort we felt knowing that our family and our friends were here with Ezra that night and until he came home to us.
Molly, Ezra's sister. I wanted to take a step back and share two very simple memories I have with Ezra. Just my brother, and yeah. So, this past June for Hill's bar mitzvah, Ezra and I wrote a poem for the party. Like most things, we are very last minute. So for about 5 hours on the Shabbos afternoon of the bar mitzvah, we sat in my room thinking up line by line. Since we couldn't write it down, we used Ezra's incredible memory to remember it as we went along. Every couple of lines, he would repeat it over in his head, and miraculously it stayed there. For 5 hours, the two of us searched our minds for ideas and rhymes. At one point, we hit a block and turned to Dr. Seuss for inspiration, which led to Ezra reading me a couple of classic Dr. Seuss stories. If you would have walked in to my room on that afternoon, you would have seen the sun shining through the window of an ordinary room and a brother and a sister sitting on a bed. You would have seen a 17-year-old boy happily chanting Dr. Seuss rhymes to his older sister, who was sitting there amused and entertained. You would have seen Ezra alive and happy and making me happy. The second memory takes place in camp this past summer when we were both on staff. Just like every other summer, there was a staff partner dance. I texted Ezra one night, "Do you have a partner for Ukudiya?" He said, "For what?" I responded, "You are my partner for Ukudiya." And he was. I did not know how frustrated he would get with me when I struggled to remember the steps in order, but after much persistence on Ezra's part, we had it down. I can really see it. It's that night and we are matching in our graduation caps and gowns while wearing clown wigs. I can see him right across from me, putting his hands on my shoulders, one after the other, and then moving them to either side of my head as I did the same to him. We chant together, shoulder, shoulder, head, head, and spin. I'm looking straight at him into his eyes, and we are laughing at how I can't seem to figure out that simple move. In September, both Ezra and I started out in new places. He began his gap year in Australia while I started college in Maryland. Both he and I needed to adjust, make new friends, and learn to be ourselves in a new environment. For the first month, we spoke on the phone about 4 times a week. One day, I remember he called me 5 times during a class, and I didn't see it until afterward. I got very worried and nervously waited for him to reply to my many messages asking why he had called so many times. When he finally responded, "I don't know, just 'cause." It made me happy that he was calling just 'cause. What we needed was support from each other, and that's exactly what we had. As I was looking back at texts, I found a message that I sent to him on September 7th. I said, "Most importantly, you find kids you like, and you have fun, because that's usually how you are. You make everything fun, just stick with the rules." And as the weeks and months went by, it is clear that that is what was happening. It meant a lot to me to have met the people that he became close with, and to see the places he was involved in, including this park, Ozvegon. One phone call, I asked Ezra about the chesed projects he had chosen. The only details he wanted to give me at that moment was, "I'm cleaning up a park." It was only after that I found out what the park was, and that I had been there on a tour last year with my seminary. It is a special place, and I understand that more now than I ever did. As it is tedious to work on a park, one of his friends told us a memory of how Ezra would run around banging the wheelbarrows into each other, how Ezra was Ezra, and how we goofed around, and how we couldn't help but make things more enjoyable. I went back to college to finish my semester a couple weeks ago. I truthfully couldn't do it without help. I cannot describe how extraordinary my friends along with the Jewish community have been. For the first couple of nights back at school, I had around 5 people sitting there with me as I closed my eyes at night. 2 friends figured out my schedule for next semester and practically registered for me. I had a friend help me finish my remaining 2 lab reports. I always had someone walking me to my meetings with my professors, and there were endless Starbucks runs made on my behalf. Outside of Maryland, I received many calls and messages from people who could not be there physically. I guess I'm trying to express that you should all be proud to be part of this family, and proud that we feel this responsibility for each other. I know that I would not have been able to do it without the support I received. No matter what, nothing can replace what was taken from us. Unfortunately, what was taken happened to be the most important person to me in my life. But he will always be the most important person.
I'd like to call up now Davidi Perel, Rosh Moetzet Gush Etzion.